This week on Mind and Heart, we're going to do something a little different. I'm taking you on the road. Back to my roots, where my education and vocation began, in an unlikely place and during an unlikely time. I'm taking you to Music City, to Nashville, Tennessee. I'm Sister John Dominic, a foundress of the Dominican Sisters of Mary, Mother of the Eucharist. Come along with us, and I will introduce you to some special people that use their gifts and talents to promote goodness and virtue. Grammy Award-winning artist Amy Grant, Hall of Fame golfer Joe Taggart, and award-winning architect Dick Miller. Welcome to Mind and Heart, and for this episode, we're bringing you a very special edition from Nashville, Tennessee. I grew up in Nashville, and really one of my privileges over the years is getting to know wonderful people. And oftentimes, these are friendships or family friends that really spoil me by their goodness. And I go away from them, and I think, how can I share? How can someone else enjoy this goodness that I experience? And Dick, you and Char really have been almost like a second family to us and to our family, and really want to thank you for that. And you never talk about yourself, and I'm going to put you in the hot seat here and have you share with us your experience. And if you can really begin by just giving us some background about yourself, and then we'll dive into what your profession has been.
Well, Char and I grew up in Salina, Kansas, and we met when we were teenagers and dated all the way through school. And then we got married very quickly after that. She was 19, I was 22. Yeah. So we celebrated 56 years this year.
Well, congratulations.
Thank you.
That's an achievement.
And we both came from sizable families. My dad, his side of the family, there were 5 children, and Char came from 4. And we just came from a large family environment. Yeah.
And that shapes everything that you've done, and you can. And I think when I think about you all as family, and one of my wonderful experiences about the two of you is how welcoming you are to everyone, and I think that's just kind of what you've known your whole life. You know nothing else. And anything else you want to add to that?
No. Well, we got together a lot, and so it was a very natural thing that we just continued once we got married, and that happened. That's happened everywhere we've been. Is that we love to be with people
and bring people together, and it's like, and I think too that one thing I've always loved is that, I mean, you've obviously done very well in your profession, which is really what I want to talk about. But I think for me, the most beautiful thing is just how you welcome everyone, and there's always just a separate, celebration. And even if I happen to come in town, I always feel welcome, or there's somebody else. And nowadays, I think that's just so important, because so many times people are just isolated, and how do you bring together and create community? And I would imagine when you're doing architecture that background kind of would influence what you're doing. And when I think about architecture, I think about 3 things. I think about vision, skills, and virtue. And that's what I'd like for you to kind of unpack for us. So if we take the first one with vision, I mean, what do you think? Do you see the building before it's actually done? I mean, what's the process for you?
Well, the process begins with the people that you're working for. Yeah. It begins with your client, and it begins with a discussion. Yeah. And you listen. For our 30th anniversary of the company, we wrote a book and compiled it together and called it 30 Years of Listening. and put our example projects into it. Those are the fundamentals of architecture, is listening to you. If you had a project, first thing we'd do is sit down together and I would ask you, what are your goals? What do you see as the end goal with this? And we would delve into it in depth and eventually get into great detail about how this works. And so starting listening to the client and the people that you're going to be serving is where you begin. That's where your vision begins.
Where it starts, and you start to see. So I guess you would really be frustrated if you came in with one idea and they had another, but the whole idea is really service.
Well, the thing that never happens, and that's that this is not universal in architecture, but you don't walk in with a vision of what this will look out on the exterior. Mm-hmm. You talk about how does it function, how does it need to work for you, and you design a building or space from the inside out, talking about the task that will take place in there, and as it evolves into a real, almost living element, you talk about, all right, the relationships of spaces, how do you want this to function? And how do you see things flowing through it? This is particularly important in medical work because there are upwards of 30 departments in a hospital.
Wow.
And they all work together at some form or fashion. Some are closely related, some are remotely related, but they all relate. And you have to do within those departments, typically like an operating room. The size of the room is easily determined, but how it functions and how people flow in and out of it is a totally different matter. And that's how you begin your design.
When you were just recently acknowledged as you're going to be inducted to the Healthcare Design Hall of Fame? Is that it?
It's the Tennessee Healthcare Hall of Fame.
Okay, and then it's a nationwide, one of the top 25 nationally for healthcare design. So, what's different? I mean, how are you approaching it? That's different than other people that you would say.
Well, there are a lot of people out there that do what we do.
Right.
And the secret to it is surrounding yourself with great people. And that's what we do. I don't do it. I don't do it all. I used to design a lot and still do. I'll pick a project a year and do it. But you transfer these abilities to the people that work with you and help train them, and they work the same way. I mean, if you come to our project, if your project comes to us at ESA, people are looking for what we're offering, usually. We don't do a lot of advertising, but we're blessed that 85% of our work is either reference or return. And so that's how we built our business.
And so when you talk about surrounding yourself, I imagine from where you started and where things are now, the skill set's a little bit different. Technology has influenced. I mean, what are you looking for when you're building a team? And a lot of people come in and you're looking for a particular skill set. What do you look for in a person?
Well, the technical part of it is relatively simple. Is experienced in today's world and computers. And it's like anything else. Different people have different abilities. But what you're really basically looking for is a people person who has the ability to sit down and communicate, has the ability to understand and translate what people are telling them, and then convert it into a living organism, which is your building.
So have you found that more challenging to find that mindset, or you've kind of, it's kind of like how I would be when I was a principal of a school and I'd see someone come in to be a teacher, and you can see certain qualities in a person, and you think, oh, they may not be there yet, but we're going to work with them and I'm going to pull it out of them. I always found that exciting. Is Have you had that experience at all?
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
That's very exciting. Is you may hire a person for a certain task and discover in the process that they have this other ability. And we have many of those in our company that where they come in to do one task, that task, you found out they're so good they don't need to do that task over here. And we all have different things that we're good at. It's a matter of matching those people and those gifts that they have, and then that translates into your design process.
All right. So I talked about vision and skills, and then with virtue, which is something that I've really been spending, as you well know, working with trying to bring this into education and to teach people about virtue. If you were to think about virtues that would be a part of your team or what you're looking for in someone, what would those be? Do you have any? I imagine patience would be one. I could think of a whole list of them, but I want to hear what you'd be looking for in someone. Values or just parts of their character.
Well, one of the mentors that I ran into early here was Dr. Fritz Sr., and he founded Hospital Corporation of America. His prime thing was good people beget good people. That's it. That is the bottom line. That's what you're looking for. And you find these good people and you make a place for them and you match their abilities with what you need done. And if you're successful in that to me, that's part of the virtue that you refer to, the honesty of how you approach doing the work we do.
And two, I think as you were speaking, I think about so much about like humility, where when someone is humble, they recognize their own talents, but also they look at others and they rejoice at what they have. And that's kind of also when we talk about, this is a big word, but being magnanimous, which means you're large-souled. That would be the virtue I would describe for you and Shar, that you just have this big embracing souls of everyone that comes around, But humility counteracts that one, that you also recognize the good in others. So I'm going to ask a tough question of you. If you can think of the projects that you've done, buildings, or maybe what's the one that's been the most rewarding?
That is a tough question. You almost have to put those in categories.
Right.
But the two projects stand out, actually three. If I had to put them in their category, number one was Opryland Hotel. We started that hotel in the late 70s and did all four of the expansions on it. And we watched that grow from, it never was small. It started out over 600 rooms, and then it grew to 3,000 almost over that period of time. But that was so much fun because we were a much smaller firm, and everybody did everything right down to the screwing light bulbs in and hanging pictures before that first phase opened. And that was exhilarating. It was a great project. Children's Hospital, Vanderbilt Children's Hospital has that same thing. It has just this basic fundamental thing and the goodness of what that does overrides what that building is or looks like. And we got caught up totally in helping those children.
Well, that building, I remember seeing it just when it was finished. Shar took me through it, and it's so beautiful. And then you think about I think when the families come there, they're just such heart-wrenching situations why they would have to bring their children, but just the joy and the space and the whole way the building flows. I mean, I'm sure that was a part of all the discussions when you're doing the vision part of it. Yeah.
It was.
Well, it really came through beautifully. All right, you said three, and there's one more.
Centennial Medical Center. That was done in the late 80s, early 90s, first phase. We're still working there after all these years because of what it's grown to become. But that was so exciting because it was a new era in design of hospitals that put inpatient, outpatient, put everything together on one platform. And that building was unique the first thing that was built was there were 1,000 cars under there on 2 levels.
Gosh.
So we designed the garage first. We didn't know what the buildings were going to look like on top of it, but we set it up on a structural grid that would enable us to build anything we wanted up there.
There's 2,000 cars underneath that?
Yes.
I would have never... Boy, that was an engineering feat, because I'm thinking about I'm visualizing it in my mind now, and you wouldn't have thought that was the first phase. I imagine there's been...
Actually, I misspoke. There's 1,100.
1,100, but still, that's still a lot.
On 2 levels.
Yeah,
it's still
right,
a lot.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, Nashville, as we know, is growing, and we experience that with the traffic and watching everything that's happening. But there's one building that's kind of like the landmark when people come in, and I think you had a hand in that one, and that one's commonly called
The Batman building.
Yeah.
Yes. That was a unique building too. That's a general office space, and it was originally for AT&T. It was actually for Southern Bell.
Yeah.
And when they interviewed us for that project, they said, we want a signature building on the skyline that is recognizable and will be, and that'll be our calling card. So we were lucky enough to be selected to do that, and our team worked on that. We did 50 different exterior models that we physically built to scale, and we still have that last model, which is the one that got built.
50 different...
50 different studies.
Well, that's what you call an example of the virtue of patience. That you
Yes.
start one, and then you're like, we'll do another one. And so how long did it take you to, at that point, how long would it have taken you to do 50 different models?
We worked on that phase. We did those fairly quickly, probably in 3 months.
Wow, that's amazing.
But that building also had a very strict budget on it. And most people are surprised by that because they think it looks like it may have had an unlimited. It didn't. But everything was studied down to the inch, even the floor heights, to get the maximum, if you will, dollar for your dollar.
Right.
But that was another great fun project.
And then you've also, well, I'm going to pull a few more out of you. What about the Nashville Symphony, right?
Nashville Symphony.
Right.
There was a design architect specialist that was hired, and we worked together on that design. We executed the design, and we were actually the ones that put together the detailing and how to build that. That's like building a project that you would have built 50 years ago. That's real stone. There's nothing in there that isn't real. And it was such a task to detail that. It's actually 2 buildings in one.
Oh, really?
The performance hall is a floating building inside of the other structure, and that's done for sound purposes.
Right.
And if you ever go in there and you'll look up in the clear story, the high windows, and you'll see 2 walls up there and 2 sets of windows. You don't know what's happened.
Yeah, that's fascinating.
But the space, the sound in there is absolutely isolated, and that's part of what makes a great concert hall.
That must have been really exciting to work on that, and actually being there for the first concert that was held there. I can't imagine.
Yes.
I'm sure you were present for that.
Yes, we were.
Yeah.
That was very exciting.
Yeah, I can imagine. And then also, too, when you all been so wonderful with your support with Belmont University, have you all done many of the buildings on that campus? Is that correct?
Yes, we have. We've done, I don't know the number exactly, but we are working on a performing arts center there today that's under construction as we speak that will rival what the Skirmerhorn is.
Oh, so they'll be there. So you'll also be working there with the floating. Well, you can take what you learned, that knowledge from that. I guess from one project to another, your team is be able to pull that knowledge that you gain to apply.
Yes.
Yeah, and that's probably what makes it exciting.
It is exciting, and that one, we're totally responsible for this one.
Oh.
The difference in the 2 halls, though, is that one will support any performing. The Belmont is a performing arts center, where you can have plays or symphonic presentations or voice. It's a multi-purpose building. Schermerhorn is one purpose, and that's for the symphony, and it's for music.
So thank you so much, really, for your time and sharing your experience and everything, Dick. One thing I think I forgot to ask you at the beginning, which is, what's the full name of your firm?
It's Earl Swenson Associates.
Okay. And how long have you been there?
I've been there, be 53 years next April.
Wow. So how long have you been, so you moved there, you went there right away then when you moved here to Nashville, correct?
I've never worked anyplace else.
Oh. Well, that's something in and of itself, that you've been loyal in a place. Then you obviously worked with the owner and the original founder, correct?
Earl was the founder, and he hired me. I think I was the 8th employee, and we made a great team, and that team grew to what we are today, which we're very proud of. So
you've been the longest?
I am the oldest person in the firm at this point.
With the youngest heart, huh? With the youngest heart, that's for sure. You're still out there playing golf, you're fishing, hunting, and taking care of all your grandchildren, right? So
yes, all of that we're enjoying.
Yeah. So Dick, when you're going to go into architecture, and obviously this is something you're passionate about, over your time in your career, is there anyone in particular that you look to that was just like a mentor, or you love their style?
One of my great mentors was Earl Swenson himself, as far as architecture goes. The historic architect that I put in that category was I was and always have been fascinated with Frank Lloyd Wright, and some of the work he's done is just incredible. Every chance I get, I will go see something he's done, and that would be my historic favorite.
We need to bring you back to Ann Arbor, because that was the same style, the architect that Tom Monahan loved, and I think he has some of his own architectural drawings. So now I have a reason for you to come back up and see us, so you can see the roots of Ann Arbor.
We would be happy to.
Well, thank you so much, and I appreciate everyone who listened to this special edition of our podcast of Mind and Heart. Once again, thank you for your hospitality by opening your home so that we could film this here and have this wonderful conversation, and that I can share your many talents and your goodness to many of our listeners and people that really look to living what it means to live a virtuous life and to be a person of integrity. And I know you cringe when I say this, but you truly are an example of that, and I want to thank you. Well,
you're very welcome. I'm honored to be considered in that company.
Yeah. And good luck on your Hall of Fame induction. Congratulations.
Thank you.
If you like this episode of the Mind and Heart podcast, I invite you to click on the next available podcast and continue to enrich your mind, heart, and soul.